Media. And then going from there, thinking he's been liberated from Edie by Dedra, but Dedra, the relationship with Dedra is just another abusive relationship.
You're listening to Path of the Jedi with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this frantic adventure. That's right, frantic adventure. Frantic because the episode I reviewed this week, the episode of Andor season 2 that I reviewed this week, was absolutely frantic. Absolutely frantic. Episode 8. The fuse has been lit and the powder keg has exploded in this episode with the situation on Gorman, which really it's everything is kind of centered around all these events on Gorman. Yeah, absolutely frantic for everybody involved. I mean, Cassian was there on site, and then you have Wilmon staying behind at the end of it. I guess because he's found himself another girlfriend. He's found himself another girlfriend, another blonde girlfriend at that. Not to say there is anything wrong with that's not a criticism, but it's an observation. He has a thing for blondes, and so yeah, everything is absolutely frantic in this episode. And this is only the second episode in the 3 episode arc, right? So we've got one more episode after this, after all this madness has erupted. Frantic also for me personally, I'm feeling pretty frantic because I'm literally a day away from travel. I'm going on a little short 5-6 day vacation by myself. And it's a vacation to go see friends and relatives and family. But it's a trip to civilization. And so yeah, I always feel a certain level of anxiety going into civilization again, especially by myself. Thankfully, I will be camping. So I'm not going to be fully immersed in civilization. I'll be out in nature. Um, for a lot of it but yeah, I mean, traveling by myself, I mean, traveling in general, there's always a level of anxiety leading up to a trip. And right now, yeah, it's just kind of a weird time for me. I've had some personal experiences in the last couple of days, very recent, that have put me in a little bit of a state, more so than I have been. If you've listened to this show for any length of time, I've been having a little bit of a difficult time. And so, yeah, with everything compiling together, it's just, yeah, I'm feeling a little frantic right now. And the way things ended in episode 8 of season 2 of Andor, yeah, I mean, there's very good reason. Like my cortisol levels are elevated after that particular episode. Um, the death of Cyril. I mean, hello, the death of Cyril. And okay, so obviously the lines between quote unquote good and bad are completely blurred in this show in particular, especially in this show because it gives so much more depth and layers to the war. It's not just the big baddies versus all the main goodies, right? It's people on the ground. It's people. It's the names and faces that you normally wouldn't hear about in a giant conflict, and those everyday, quote unquote, everyday type people are highlighted and are the central focal point of this particular show. And so with Cyril, going through what he's gone through in this season, he's definitely a much more sympathetic character this season than he was in the first season, at least in my opinion. The first season, I couldn't really care for him all that much, but in this season, getting a peek at his background, his history, we get to know him so much better. And as a result, I think he's much more sympathetic. I mean, he's obviously the victim of abuse. Lifelong abuse. I can only imagine what it was like to grow up with a mother like Edie, and then going from there, thinking he's been liberated from Edie by Dedra, but the relationship with Dedra is just another abusive relationship. It just takes a different form, right? And it's just so heartbreaking and tragic. Um, unknowingly going from one abusive relationship to another, thinking that he was liberated, thinking that he was free, and then having all of that, the rug pulled out from under him in this episode, and then tragically getting killed, right? Like his story concluding in this episode just was written so well. Like the operatic nature of his story was just so good, and the ending was just so good, yeah. Yeah, I can't really. I can. There's nothing more I can really say to that, other than, well, I mean, I could go on about psychology of Cyril, and the reasons of why an individual would get into those kinds of relationships and unknowingly stay in situations of abuse. But yeah, I think I'll save that for another episode. Today, actually, the intention wasn't to give you a full episode. Um, there is a lot to talk about with this particular installment of Andor season two. However, given everything that's on my plate right now with the upcoming travel and just where my head is, I'm not going to be able to deliver you a quality, at least in my opinion, a quality analysis and discussion on this particular episode. And not only does this episode deserve it, but you deserve it, right? You deserve it. So I really just wanted to come on here and let you know that number one, I will be going on vacation. So that means there is no new episode next week. That's the week of July 2nd, right? That would be the normal release date. I mean, there's a chance, you might find myself in my tent one night not being able to sleep and record an episode, but highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. This trip is going to be pretty busy. I'm pretty tied up. A lot of activities and lots of things to do, lots of people to visit, and so which include, by the way, playing a couple of open mics while I'm there. So I'm pretty excited about that. Again, super super busy, and so I'm not going to have a lot of time to devote to recording and producing and editing an episode for next week. So expect there to not be an episode next week. The second thing then is the week after that, we will return with the discussion and analysis of Andor season 2, episode 8. Right, episode 8. So, yeah. Again, I just wanted to get on here to as a placeholder to make sure that what's happening and what my schedule is going to be like, so that you're not just left hanging. And I guess lastly, I just wanted to say, if you're not already following the show, please follow the show. But especially if you're not subscribed to our YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube. I'm going to be posting more video content there. Right now, the only new content that's going up is pretty much the podcast version of the show. But very soon, I'm going to be posting music content, like stuff of me playing. I'm getting back more into my music, and I really want to work to build my music career. I know it sounds crazy, and I cringe just thinking about it, and I cringe at the content that I've recorded so far. But you know what? You got to start somewhere. So I'm going to be posting that on our YouTube channel. So you can just search for me, Ronnie Cruz and Path of the Jedi. If you're at all interested, I invite you to check it out. But I also, once we start doing collaborations and having guests here on Path of the Jedi, I will likely have video versions of that as well. So that's where it's all going to go. Again, you can search for me. I'll leave a link in the show notes of this episode, but yeah, you just search for me, Ronnie Cruz, Cruz, and Path of the Jedi, and it'll come up no problem. Okay, so that's going to do it for today. I just want to thank you again for continuing to listen and support Path of the Jedi and everything that we're doing. The show is actually growing very nicely. So yeah, that's all thanks to you. I'm just recording and sharing this stuff. So I really, really appreciate it, and I'm so grateful to you. I will see you in 2 weeks. So until then, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and may the Force be with you. For light and life. This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.